On the Fix, we enjoy digging deep and looking at what is necessary to take our country forward. We have the best policies. We're good at talking to each other. However, we suck at implementation. Tonight's panel is focused on whether or not South Africa has the right leaders and leadership to deal with the multiplicity of challenges that needs to be addressed. To debate this issue, I'm joined from our Cape Town studios by former public protector, now Professor Thuli Madonsela. Professor Madonsela, a good welcome to The Fix. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the privilege, Karima. Good evening to everyone.
And then, of course, I am joined in the studio by Dr. Abba Omar from the Banking Association of South Africa. Dr. Omar, thank you so much for joining us here in the conversation as well. And as always, my panelist here and co-presenter, Peter.
Yeah.
Peter, you've always written about how important it is to have the right people in the right places.
Well, I was reading, and I read Abba Omar's article in Business Day the other day, and I liked it because he seemed to, and I don't want to misrepresent you, so please correct me if I am, but individuals do matter in history, you know, and circumstances might dictate who they are. Winston Churchill just might not easily have been the Prime Minister of Britain or whatever, but it's the circumstances that push somebody to the fore. Right. And the circumstances, I guess, in our country are that poverty is unbelievable, and it's getting worse. And you know, I worry that out of that particular circumstance, out of poverty, will come not necessarily much good. There's a lot of rage in South Africa.
Abba, leaders and leadership are obviously not the same thing.
Right.
The last couple of years, we've had lots of leaders, but we haven't had leadership.
Right.
What is the difference between the two?
Okay, I mean, at its simplest level, a leader is someone who's heading a body or an organization or a campaign. I think true leadership, has, I think it's largely an intuition, an ability to have what people often call finding the magnetic north of morality, ethics, and able to mobilize people across a wide range of forces. I think Winston Churchill is a good example, even if people are critical of a lot of his other views. When I was writing that piece, I was wondering whether this is South Africa's darkest hour. And I think you remember the speech he made where he said that this is the point where you have to get the entire nation working together. And I think at the same time, I think there's a deep degree of despondency and pessimism, but we can also turn this into our finest hour. And that's the difference leadership would make.
Absolutely. Now, of course, one of the women that has been credited for at least getting some of our leaders to redial that compass, that moral compass that was stuck, and move the needle a little bit is, of course, Professor Madonsela. You have spoken extensively on the importance of leadership, on the importance of servant leadership. Do we, in your view, have the right leadership to deal with the kinds of challenges that South Africa sits with today? And I'm talking about our current leadership, both in political and corporate terms.
Yes, Karima. Well, good evening to Bruce as well, to Peter Bruce. Karima, we do have right leadership in various areas of society, but we might not always make a good match between the kind of leaders we put in various critical areas in society and their skill set. You spoke about leadership in industry. South Africa has some of the global giants when it comes to the corporate sector. You go everywhere, you find a South African company that is doing exceptionally well. But when it comes to political leadership at national government, local government, and provincial government, we've not always utilized the best of our leaders, the most competent, the least selfish, and the most trustworthy of the leaders that we have.
Absolutely. Let's take a listen to what Cyril Ramaphosa had to say about the impact of leaders who use their position to enrich themselves.
A clear message has been issued, and the message is we must treat corruption as the number one enemy of our people and must take action. Now, this is an enabling measure that we've been working on, and today we also consolidate it here at this summit and reconfirm that our people as a whole, including everyone represented at this summit, abhors corruption, and they want to see us take action, real action, and our criminal justice institutions must immediately get on with the job and make sure that they address corruption.
That, of course, President Cyril Ramaphosa speaking there about the importance of corruption. Peter?
I'm going to ask Thuli Madonsela a question,
yes.
And I don't want to put you on the spot. Well, I do, in a way. So we're at a critical moment where leadership is required right now as we sit around this table, okay? The top six of the ANC is, we understand, at Cyril Ramaphosa's Buffalo Ranch in Limpopo, and they are talking about what to do about the fact that the finance minister lied in a television interview last year or year before last about how well he knew the Gupta family, and has only now revealed that he knew them a lot better than he originally said he did. What does leadership, what does moral political leadership do now, Prof?
Well, that's a difficult one, Peter. I would say with the Minister of Finance, there's one positive aspect of his confession. The fact that he's confessed is a positive thing, because leading with integrity does not mean you never make mistakes. It means that when you do make a mistake, you do admit to that mistake and you make amends. What then happens going forward? I think for me it will depend on the reasons he's going to give for lying, because it does, of course, leave everyone worried about what else has he lied about and can he be trusted in the future. But considering everyone else who has been involved with the Gupta family and state capture, I would ask that we don't rush to judge this one person. Let's see if other people are going to come out of the woodworks and tell us about their own encounters with that family and what did that mean for the policies they were required to drive in government and the tenders they had to implement.
Prof, I'm going to put you on the spot like my colleague Peter, because that's our jobs. I want to ask you categorically, do you think that Nhlanhla Nene should fall on his sword and resign and not force President Cyril Ramaphosa to make that decision? Should the moral compass of Nhlanhla Nene guide his actions?
Yes, you did say you're going to ask me a difficult question. My colleague Selby Barkwa once decided a report, on a report about Premier Ndaweni Mahlangu having said that it was okay for politicians to lie. And the decision by Advocate Selby Barkwa, who's now in charge, was that it's wrong for a politician to say it's okay to lie and it's unethical. And following that, he resigned and was replaced. Well, that was quite a while ago. At the current moment, I really believe that what I would like to find out is why did he lie? And once we know why he lied, we then have a better opportunity to understand what should be the way forward. For me, it's what happened, what should have happened. Is there a reason for the discrepancy between what happened and what should have happened? Of course, he should have told the truth, but would like to know why did he not tell the truth?
Abba, I want to ask you, I mean, you've been in government yourself.
Yes.
What turns a good civil servant, what turns a liberation fighter into someone that is corrupt? Is it unchecked power? Is the fact that there isn't enough people looking over their shoulders, checking what they should do?
Yeah, I think it's a good question because there's obviously
My
several
own experience
factors.
as a perpetrator and as a fellow civil servant is that it starts from need to greed. The need might be people getting involved in a scam simply because they want to keep their job or they want to keep their place in the inner circle. They're afraid that if they don't play along, they're going to be kicked out of the inner circle or they might lose their jobs. In some instances, as you've seen in Eskom, SABC, etc., it's really cases where somebody might need the money. Maybe they're in the middle of a financial cash flow crisis and these opportunities to be corrupt arise. But in this case, we're not talking corruption per se. We're talking unethical conduct. When you do the wrong thing, knowing it's a wrong thing. The minister has admitted that it was wrong to go to that family. But we must also understand that for me, the biggest issue is not that he went to that family per se, it is the lying about it.
Yes.
Because our morality shifts. I think a lot of ministers got sucked into going to that house without realizing that they were getting sucked into a black hole, so to speak. And what we'd like to know is a full disclosure of what was discussed, everything, and a full disclosure on, in this particular case, why the information was withheld.
Absolutely. Dr. Omar, let me come to you. What makes someone who used to be a liberation fighter, who joined the state to build a democratic state, do the kind of unethical things on the scale that we have seen here in South Africa?
Right. I think, often it starts small. So it's the little favor to a friend or accepting a rugby ticket for someone who's a supplier to your department, etc. And I think one of the factors we found when I was in the GCIS in 1998, 2000, when we did carry out the first anti-corruption strategy, was that if people think they can get away, quite often they're tempted to do that. Then there's a kind of spiraling effect that people start saying, well, I've got that done and I can do a few more things. And eventually you get sucked into it, which I think Minister Bheki described well when he said, when he was young, he had the first lick of a condensed milk, and then he took another one, and eventually the can was empty. And you get hooked onto it. You start wanting to live a certain lifestyle, and then people just forget how much is enough, that you actually should be living within your means. You should be living a modest lifestyle. And then you start wanting to then have the Porsches, the Ferraris, the bigger house, the second house, the overseas trips, etc. So it's a corrosive effect. And I think that, obviously we should have stopped it firmly at one point. But we've now got the Zuma legacy, the Zuma era. And I'm going to begin talking about the Zuma era and legacy just as we speak about the apartheid legacy.
Yes.
It was as evil, as bad as we've had in the past. We need to undo the effect of that. We need to actually tell public servants, work within your means. We actually need to get priests to be also holding up the moral high ground that they're supposed to be for communities. We obviously need to get business people to be also working ethically.
I was just watching Cyril Ramaphosa there at the job summit. So when he's being as emphatic about corruption being the #1 priority, and that the police need to do their work and to get the corrupt people into jail and do their and I just how does he strike you? Were those the words of a leader speaking? I mean, he's now 50 days into deciding who or not to appoint as a new leader of the NPA. Mm-hmm. How much longer will he take? Right. And how much good could have been done had the leader of the NPA been appointed 50 days ago?
Right, right. Yeah, I think that's one of the qualities that we often say, that is he being decisive or not?
Yes.
And is he carrying out the right ethical decision? I have no doubt, and I think most of the country feels that Mr. Ramaphosa represents the best of our morality and our ethics. He has the best of our intentions.
So far.
Yeah, so far. And I think there's often micro calculations that often disturb, and that's where I find that management is separate from leadership.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think this is when he's almost managing certain crises and calculations, whereas a good leader would have said, this is the person, go and sort it out, clean it out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Professor Madonsela, you make a similar point in a piece that you wrote today in the Sunday Times, and you happen to speak about the way in which the Zondo Commission, for example, is going about its business. And whilst you are careful to not openly criticize Judge Zondo for how the Commission is working, you talk about a lot of time wasting, that you provided them with evidence, that some of the evidence was going to go cold, that there needed to be a sense of urgency, but there wasn't. And as a consequence of that, people are not being charged because there's actually prima facie evidence against some individuals. We can actually start arresting people a lot faster than we are.
Yeah, Karima, I'm glad that you've raised that. I haven't criticized the Commission in any way whatsoever. I just indicated how we would have done it as the perpetrator, which is a different method. But regarding the evidence, the judge can't just get evidence from any source. Us as a perpetrator, we used to get evidence from other oversight bodies. We couldn't just take it and use it as our evidence. We had to authenticate it. We had to subject it to our own rules, and the judge has to do that. But secondly, regarding the delay, I didn't blame the judge for the delay. I blamed the fact that the commission was appointed far too late, and also the fact that the vetting of the staff for the commission is taking long, and in my view, it shouldn't have been done, particularly because the State Security Agency is implicated in state capture, and to then say people should be vetted by the very same agency, you're asking for trouble.
Now, on that question,
I just like the point you made.
Yes.
I don't know whether I saw it in the paper on
the Arthur Fraser story.
on social media. No. Basically, Prof. Madonsela reckons she knows how to run an investigation, and you know, she knows when one isn't being run properly. And this is too slow, is it not, Prof?
Well, I didn't say that this one is not being run properly. I just answered the questions around what was our style, because we were trained specifically on how to run an investigation. And of course, the judge has a right to run this investigation the best way he knows how. But I also was suggesting, for us as a member of the public, we should also understand that it's not just about people going to jail, that the commission is important. The court of public opinion is equally important. Look, Minister Nene has already disclosed something. Had there been no commission, he wouldn't have disclosed. We've heard other people come out, Ms. Williams, for example, coming to tell us what happened. She wasn't part of the original whistleblowers, but she's come out, and I'm hoping that as more people come out and tell the truth, the spines of others are going to stiffen.
Abba, I wanted to ask you something. There's been a lot of credit given to Minister Nene for holding the line against the Russians. Why should he be congratulated for doing his job? That was his job, to not act illegally. Why is it a special thing? Is the bar so low that when you do your job, you get a gold star? And then the second question is the point that Thuli Madonsela raised. An agency is used to vet people. That very agency is at the center of state capture. And we have the President Ramaphosa, making a very unusual and odd move. He doesn't sack Arthur Fraser, he moves him sideways. And he says, we will understand later why this is important. And this week again, he protected him. So how do we trust Mr. Ramaphosa's leadership?
Right. So I think on the first question,
May I?
Sorry?
May I say something?
Okay.
Go for it.
Yes, but my view is let's not be too quick to judge the president. When it comes to the legal process, the criminal justice process, it is important that he allows these processes to conclude before he works against people. Where I think the ANC as a party needs to act is at the level of ethics, because ethics does not have to wait for the criminal justice system. Parliament should step up on issues of ethics. Cabinet should step up on issues of ethics, because a whole lot of these people could be brought to book using ethics whilst we're waiting for the criminal justice system. But I do understand that the president or any other person cannot act arbitrarily.
Okay.
If I can respond then. I think, although we feel that we set the bar low, but I think we also need to look at the circumstances when there's huge pressure being put on a lot of ministers. Some ministers were obviously aligned to President Zuma at that point in time and ganging up against other ministers like Minister Nene. When you take a position as firmly as he did at that point, I think it is, he won't get the Lenin Award for bravery, but he should be acknowledged for having taken a position and stuck to it. And I think that's important, that wherever you are, you can take positions. Even if we have a repeat of this kind of corruption, not all of it has gone away. Simple public servants can say, no, we refuse to do that.
Absolutely. That is where we will have to leave it. Unfortunately, lots more to discuss. That was former public protector, now Professor Madonsela at the University of Stellenbosch, and also, of course, Dr. Abba Omar from the Banking Association. Peter,
yeah, thank
you've
you.
had your fix. I've had my fix.
Yeah,
well, we'll
absolutely.
see you again next week.